Hey everybody, it's Nick, it's Jay, it's Jeff. We have just returned from the Yokohama Stuntin Splodin Soiree at MSR Houston. Now, we've been going to MSR Houston for a long time now, and it's really developed a nice patina.
You know, running a racetrack after the apocalypse is pretty hard to do, so they're doing the best they can.
Now, this was a full 24-hour race. At 24, as you know, in the middle of the night, things do start to get a little weird.
People were just like putting plastic bags up against their ass in the plastic bag, wiping, putting the paper, I'm assuming they're using old like hobo newspapers too, you know, and then tying it in a steamy knot, you know, and throwing it in the trash can. So soon, all the trash cans are heaped over with bags of flies, you know, and then you all on the track.
But you can't deny it. They do have a certain romance and mystique.
It starts with pissing on the ground and ends with murdering the people who annoy you.
Hella sweet. The pop trunk slab penalty. This is Houston. You know slabs. Texas Judge Sajeev set this one up.
This was especially hella sweet. Team Bandit brought their third generation Chevy Camaro, and they realized that the Pontiac J2000, which of course is the Pontiac version of the Chevy Cavalier, has a front end that's sort of like a weird mini Trans Am Bandit edition Firebird. And so they took the nose off of a J2000, I don't know where they found one, and they stuck it onto their Camaro, and boom, the Bandit.
What I liked about this, on Facebook, if you look at the comments, there's literally a guy, well, that is $8,000 right there. Hella sweet and but terrible simultaneously at this race. Car 39 and Car 93, Breaking Bad Racing. They had a great Russian cheeky-breaky theme, complete with the 3 stripes of Adidas. It was pretty excellent right up until the point where their Festiva burst into flame in the middle of the night and shut everything down to a screeching halt. Look, theming does not need to be hard. You can build a space shuttle out of surfboard foam if you want, or you can get a whole bunch of dime store zebra stickers. You can get a Nissan 300. You can call yourself the Z-Bros. It's all it takes.
These guys showed up with a Pinto wagon with an excellent Bill and Ted theme.
Yeah, it's funny how the teams that have really good cars tend to have really good themes.
Yeah, and the teams that have really lame cars have really lame themes. What is that?
Early in the race, they blew their motor up in the Pinto. They ended up buying a Spectator's Pontiac Le Mans, and Phil will note, actually a Daewoo.
Ah, he's going to love it.
300,000 miles on the clock. They drove that car home, and they swear they're going to turn it into their next Lemons car.
You know what else is not hard? Building a Lemons car. You get a crashed Grand Marquis, you straighten it out, you put a cage in it, you go racing. Not hard, but terrible. Now, years ago, Eyesore Racing, they had this brilliant scheme idea. You get 2 Lemons cars. They're prepared utterly identically. So now, instead of coming in and having to fuel the car and have this lengthy pit stop, what you do is you bring in one car, and then when nobody's looking, you drive the other one out. You already got it fueled up, the driver's in it. You have cut your pit stops in half. It's genius. It's like the great train robbery of lemons.
And nobody has tried to implement this plan until now. Spank bought 2 identical Hyundai Accents in San Diego, drove them all the way to MSR Houston, and he was going to use this eyesore loophole to dominate Class C. But what wound up happening was, all of his teammates bailed out, one of the cars was for sale, and he sold it. So then he couldn't use that second car anymore, but then the first car broke down, and they needed the transmission out of the second car, so they had to swap that. The pit stops were really long anyway because the way the hot pits worked and the fueling couldn't be done at the same time. And in the meantime, a Buick LeSabre went on to win Class C by a small margin of about 900 laps. So the moral of the story is, while Eyesore's loophole sounds like it's going to work great on paper, in practice, it's not going to work at all.
What if it wasn't Spank?
Yeah, that could work.
But terrible. Bangers and Crash brought a Ford Focus and some British accents. They drove a little bit. They spun the rod bearings. They spent the whole time fixing the rod bearings. They went back out, and it immediately grenaded.
our sponsor Yokohama, they brought an El Camino to this race, and they brought a whole Nitro Circus team to drive it. And that was Travis Pastrana, Trevor Piranha, Travis's wife Lyn-Z, and Street Bike Tommy.
Yeah, and as is often the case with pro-prepped drivers and teams, they wiped out a lot. They racked up a lot of black flags. At one point, Travis Pastrana was on the radio to his wife, telling her to go faster, at which point she immediately wiped out.
Yeah.
And so these things go.
This is my wife.
And
So
you told her to go faster.
after she spun, I was like, look, she's already faster than Piranha, and she was 2 seconds off of Street Bike Tommy. I'm like, if you can beat...
So he made you go faster than you were comfortable going.
No, we didn't say that.
Or are we getting into like sensitive relationship stuff now? Is it...
I've spun less than Travis in his NASCAR career, so I'm still winning.
In the end, Team Nitro Circus was beaten by the Pinto, the Grand Marquis, and the Little Buckaroo.
The special award went to Team Richie Rich from the Waitlist and their BMW E36. These guys used to be real black flag magnets. They've cleaned up their driving, and for this race, they drove their Lemons car on the street all the way from New Jersey just so they could do the 24-hour race.
Boom, there you go, bam, ho!
Now, of course, they blew up and they had to pay to ship the car all the way back to New Jersey. So we gave them the New Jersey Guidos Invade Texas, Go Home Broken Award.
Now there is a very popular car that runs all these Texas races called Escape Velocity, and they've got a 64 slant 6 automatic Dodge Dart done up like a NASA rocket. Thing is awesome. So our old friends from the Resistance, for this race they gave up their old and gorgeous 1970 Civics to get the Soviet counterpart. They bought their own slant 6 automatic powered Mopar.
It was a Dart.
It was a Dart, and they done it all up as the cosmonaut-themed Russian rocket. And those things were neck and neck for most of the race. I loved it.
They weren't. The Russians were demolished. USA, USA.
I wasn't even there, so how would I know?
Mixtape Racing had the unfortunate privilege of being T-boned early on Saturday. The car looked unfixable, but they were able to weld it all back together in little pieces, and they got back out on Sunday, thus winning the heroic fix.
I got screwed with to the Dipsticks and their car, Harvey the Floodbug. This, of course, was a VW New Beetle that they purchased on an online auction, sight unseen, even knowing that it was a Hurricane Harvey flood car. When they took delivery of the car, it was all messed up. The tow yard had shredded the oil panel. They were dragging it around the yard before the auction. They finally got it running, and then they blew a head gasket the day before the race.
They even showed up to tech. The head was still off the car. It wasn't running.
Yeah, and they went back to their pits, and they started wrenching, and they thought, well, it's a 24-hour race. We'll get going by the end. Well, guess what? They never got going, but they stuck around to the end, and because you must be present to win, they got screwed.
Organizer's choice went to Westlake Boating School. This is a group of high school kids from Austin. They brought a dead stock 67 Fairlane automatic 289, and that thing went around and around. And it just goes to show you, you do not have to be clever. You can just be a bunch of high school kids. You can have a dead stock Fairlane. It's not that hard!
The index of effluency went to Escape Velocity Racing. Don't be confused by their number 13 NASA-themed Dart. This was a 1941 Oldsmobile 98. Completely bone stock, original motor, rusty valve cover. It had one new plug wire, maybe they changed the oil, crappy old dead lever shocks. It was amazing.
Yeah, and this being a 1941, it is the oldest car in Lemon's history, not counting the Model T GT, which doesn't count. It's also the bounciest car in Lemon's history, and it's the first straight 8 in Lemon's history.
And it was decorated by German conceptual artist Stowhead, and it was driven by Anton Lovett, who has driven pretty much all of the worst, most butt-terrible cars in Lemons, and he actually described this one as both the very worst he has ever driven and the very best.
And then when it hooks up, and then it boots all the way down the front straight.
They motored around most of the time, finished 84th out of almost 120.
That was more than enough for IOE. Here's Lemons in a nutshell.
Oh, baby. Is that in neutral?
Yep.
That is something else.
Is that Van Gogh?
All we are is dust in the wind, dude. Excellent!
So what happened now?
In the last 45 minutes, we nuked the crap out of that 2.3 in our Pinto.
Lemon blight test.
Touch sensitive.
Up there. Okay. Dims, touch it again. Up right.
There, touch again.
Oh, that is pretty darn fancy.
How about that?
We're gonna have to figure that one out. 1 or 3, but number 4.
Oh,
Look, if it gets dark, just bump the car in front of you.
Yeah, we were all sure, but yeah.
I was confident.